So I've had a pretty bad run with true crime series recently. I just struggled to find anything that I could really sink my teeth into that really made me really excited. And then I came across The Killer Within. This is a Sky crime show. I watched it with a Now TV subscription. And it's 9 episodes, each one your standard 45 minutes, an hour in length. And I love this. It obviously has a unique approach. Each one focuses on an individual killer or couple killers who have only ever knowingly killed one person or committed one act of murder at one point. And it discusses the things that led up to the point of them unleashing the killer within. And most of these are people who you would not expect to be killers. So for the most part, we're not looking at people who grew up on the streets, addicted to drugs, carrying guns, and then finally just unleashing their anger. Mostly these are people you wouldn't expect it from. I also really like the fact that some of the cases are British and some of them are American. Because sometimes I'm in the mood for a British true crime story, sometimes I'm in the mood for an American one, and this just kind of gives me everything at once. I'll discuss a couple of the cases in a moment, but that will obviously contain a few spoilers, so I'll just talk about the documentary series and the style of it. It's narrated by Lucy Wolfe. Brilliant narration, very engaging narration, informative, and very fascinating. The people who are being interviewed, we have a mix of industry professionals and, people close to the victims, family members, friends, things like that. People who have either first or second-hand accounts. One thing I will say is that there's something that I think was not a great decision. Now, when you have a professional speaking about a case, usually from forensic psychology or kind of that from that angle, usually they've never had any relationship with the case. Usually they've looked at the case files, analysed that individual's personality, the events in their life that would lead up to them releasing the killer from within. And you know deep down that they never actually met that person. They've just looked at the case files and come to a conclusion about their personalities. But you can kind of just suspend disbelief. But with this, we have several British experts, some of whom I've seen on other shows. They're fantastic. I trust their words. I know what they're saying is from a learned, educated, experienced background. I have nothing wrong with what they're actually saying. But when you have these British experts who are working in Britain, talking at length about these American killers, it's harder to suspend disbelief. Obviously, Brits can go and live in America. That's great. Very tempted to do so. But it makes it feel a little bit more disconnected, and it makes you feel like they're not as connected to the case. So I think that was not a great choice. But if that's the worst thing about this, then it's doing pretty great. Where possible, they use crime scene footage, CCTV, crime scene images. Is it graphic? There were a couple of cases that used relatively graphic images. We're not getting to see anything too severe. But if you are new to true crime and you don't want to jump in at the deep end, I'd say this is definitely a little bit more intense. You will have to see bloodshed and wounds and things like that. So the documentary series as a whole, fantastic. 9 episodes. I think it might have been 10 episodes actually, I tell a lie. It was absolutely fantastic and I truly, truly adore it, and I hope we get a second series. So, the cases themselves, there may be a couple of spoilers here. The first one really blew me away. The first one was actually a British case, nicknamed the Twilight Killers, Kim and Lucas. Kim and her boyfriend murdered her own mother and her own sister. I think her sister was 13. Her sister was definitely a little bit younger than her. And because her mother didn't approve of that relationship, she murdered her mother. Why she had to murder her sister, I don't know. And it's brutal. I don't remember this case. I don't remember having heard about this one before. I've heard about similar cases, usually actually American ones, but it was quite disturbing. The episode went into a lot of detail about Kim Edwards's personality, her frame of mind, or what obviously they believe her frame of mind was like. and what could have led this 14-year-old to unleash the killer within. It's definitely food for thought and very interesting. Another one that I really found very interesting was Antoinette Frank. This case is nicknamed Killer Cops, and basically she became a policewoman with good intention as far as we can see, and then one day, what seems like out of the blue, but with a little bit of planning, if that makes any sense, killed several people in a restaurant, the owners. And, you know, if you are, I love the police, I completely trust them with my life, even though clearly I shouldn't, but if you are the kind of person who teeters on the edge of not knowing whether or not you can trust the police force as a unit, this will really do you some damage. But really very well delivered episode. We get to hear from a psychologist or a psychiatrist, I can't remember which, who had actually initially assessed her and said that she was not mentally fit for the police academy. But then she got a second opinion who said that she was fine. So it's, you know, if she'd never got that second opinion, this never would have happened, presumably. So it's you know, it's quite insane to think of. Wilbern Cooper, really interesting. The case itself wasn't, but the arrest happened 30 years after the fact. So I found that to be, you know, a really interesting perspective. And the other one is called the Nanny murder, and this woman called Sabrina, basically she was a narcissist. I don't think they ever used the word narcissist in the documentary, but there's definitely this self-centered, self-obsessed, thinks she's better than everybody else kind of personality. And again, it looks at her background, but it also spends a bit of time looking at the suffering that Sophie, the nanny, felt before they killed her, and it's just such a horrific story. This is a British one again, and to think that this happened in and around London, and it's just, it shouldn't have done. And it was only a couple of years ago as well. It's painful, really painful to think about. Absolutely fantastic documentary series. Truly loved it from start to finish. I really hope we get a second series. I'm not sure when this actually first aired. If it was recent, we might get a second series. If it was quite a while ago, then it's very unlikely that they will commission another one. But fingers crossed. If you have Sky Crime, I don't have Sky, really want to get Sky just for Sky Crime, or if you want to get a Now TV subscription, The Killer Within, absolutely worth watching. It's just, for me personally, it ticks every box on my wish list and more. It really is just such an exquisite documentary.